This one. Oh, this one. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Azure User Group Sweden. Thank you for joining us again this Saturday for another learning session with us. And how are you? And hi, Håkan.
Hi, Jonah. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's good to be here again. It's been a while.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I hope everyone are doing great today. And before we start our session today, which is about data-driven workflow using Azure Data Factory and Logic Apps, I would like to introduce my co-leader here, Håkan Silvernagel. He is a Microsoft MVP for AI, and he works as an AI manager and big data manager at Miles in Norway. And he is a community leader of different user groups like AI 42, uh, .NET user group in Oslo, and also public speaker and a lot of great things. Yeah, so I'm honored to work with you, Håkan.
Yeah, likewise. So I would also like to introduce Jonah. So Jonah Anderson is the founder of our user group, Azure User Group Sweden. And she is also a Microsoft Azure MVP, Microsoft certified trainer. And she is a mentor, a public speaker. And in her daily life, she works as a cloud and DevOps engineer at Forefront Consulting. And she's also in the process of writing her first book. So what is the book about, Jonah?
It's about Azure, of course. It's called Learning Microsoft Azure Cloud Computing and Development Fundamentals with O'Reilly. So I look forward to share it with everyone in the community. Thank you for the introduction, Håkan. Yeah, thank you. So that's a brief introduction about each of us. And before we start and bring our speaker on stage, we would like to remind everyone about our code of conduct. So our code of conduct, we expect everyone to be nice and friendly, listen with purpose and be thoughtful, be respectful to others, seek to understand and not criticize, be curious and open to share your ideas, and be respectful and inclusive in your comments and questions. And if you have questions about our code of conduct, feel free to reach out to me on Håkan or read more on the links that you're seeing in this page below. Yes, that's our code of conduct, Håkan, and we can share that we're gonna have like a fika, or to those that wants to join us later as well. We do have
Yes.
a session. Go ahead, Håkan.
Yeah, so the fika is a concept where we will invite you for a Zoom meeting after this session so that you can speak directly to our speaker. Maybe there are things that you would like to have more explained, or maybe you have some questions in your projects that you would like to discuss. So we will share the link in the end of the session.
Yes, that's correct. And to those that are learning with us, we will be sharing an Azure Heroes QR code as well later. All right, it's time to shine. Should we introduce our speaker, Håkan?
Yes. So let us just invite her to our
Yes.
stream here. Welcome, Alpa.
Thank you.
For you,
Hi.
let me introduce our speaker here. So Alpa Buddhabhatti is an Azure consultant with a strong passion for data and technology. She works at Cluster Reply, and she has around 12 years experience as a software developer and has worked in a wide variety of projects. And she is also a speaker at various events like PASS Summit, Data Saturdays, SQL Saturday, and Azure Community Conference. And she is also a certified data scientist, data engineer, and a Microsoft certified trainer. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Welcome.
So,
Yes, Alpha.
Yeah.
so what will we be hearing about today?
Today we are hearing about Azure Data Factory, Azure Function, and Azure Logic Apps.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to learn from your session, Alpha.
Yeah.
So, yeah, are you ready to rock the stage, the
Yeah.
virtual
Yeah.
stage?
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do.
Okay. Okay. Then let me start now. So thank you all and welcome to my session, a case study data driven workflow using Azure Data Factory, Azure Functions, and Azure Logic Apps here at Azure User Group Sweden. So in this session, we're going to see a demo using all three services as well, and it's based on a data driven. So yeah, so this is me. I think you know now me, but I can share this link so you can find me in Twitter or you can find me in LinkedIn. You can find few blogs in a Medium as well using these users, and you can find a presentation and GitHub repo for this session at GitHub in here, Azure User Sweden 2022. In that repository, you can find that. So now let's start with today's agenda. So today's agenda is divided into four main parts. So first three parts we're going to see a very quick overview of these three Azure services, and then we're going to see a demo using all three of them. So let's start with first one. What is Azure Data Factory? So for that, we can see that it is a cloud based data integration service that orchestrates and automates the movement and transformation of your data at a scale. It is also Azure Platform as a Service. So you don't need to worry about compute infrastructure, software installation, or web server configuration, or you don't need to implement your own monitoring tool as well. It is also a serverless, and you only pay for what you have used. So for example, you have Azure Data Factory, and you have more than one pipelines or more than 100 pipelines. But if your pipeline is not running, then you won't get any charge for execution. However, you get a small amount of charge for a storage, which can be negligible. So it is a cost effective. And last but not least, it's a low code or no code solution. So you can quickly build your pipeline by just drag and drop components. You can do data movements, data transformation, you can orchestrate your pipeline, you can automate your pipeline. All you can do it by just drag and drop components. So you can find more information in this link if you like to know more about Azure Data Factory. And now we're going to see a key components of Azure Data Factory. So you get idea when you create your Azure Data Factory how or what it should be. So first one is a linked services. So linked services is like a connection holder. It's hold a connection strings of your data source, and it's authorize your data source so it can be used by in your Azure Data Factory with other components can use it. Next one is a data sets. So data sets is a metadata of your data or reference of your data or a structure of your data. So for example, if your link service hold a connection string of Azure SQL database, then your data sets in a form of the table. But your link service is holding the connection string of REST API, then your data sets in form of the JSON file. So dataset can be a file, folder, or a table format. So that is a dataset. So you create your link service, you create your data sets, and then you can create your pipelines. So pipelines is a logical group of your activities or tasks or steps which achieve a basic business achieve the business outcomes. So in pipeline can have activities, and activity can be in parallel or sequential. So that is a pipeline. Fourth one is activities. So when you create your pipeline, inside you add a steps, and for that you use activities. So activities do a specific task. For example, copy activity perform the copy data, machine learning activity perform the machine learning data inside your ADF. And as we said that Azure Data Factory is a no code or low code solution. So if you want to do some logics, for example, you like to declare your variable, set your variable, you write down for each loop like you do in your programming language or database language. So if you want to do same thing in here, activity help you. So for that, Azure Data Factory have like for each loop activity, if activity, switch activity, and there are so many other activities available. I will going to show you during the demo. So that is activity which is a specific task. I do a specific task in Azure Data Factory. And it's like ready-made components for you. So you just need to drag and drop, and you need to set few properties. And last but not least, it's triggers. So once you have a pipeline ready, you need to execute your pipeline. You can execute your pipeline by manually clicking on debug button, or you can trigger it. So your pipeline can be triggered in various different way. It can trigger based on a time. It can trigger based on when file created or deleted from your blob storage, or when custom activity. Like you can write down your own code. For example, you can write down your code in a Azure Function, Azure Logic Apps, PowerShell, or C# code. So that those custom activity, you write down your code, and it will trigger your pipelines, and your pipeline will execute. So these are the five main components in Azure Data Factory. So now let's move into next one. So I think we covered a quick overview of Azure Data Factory. So do we have any question on that? Otherwise, I can move to next topic, which is Azure Function. So I think it's no. So okay.
Yes, no questions so far.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So let me start with Azure Functions. So what is Azure Functions? So I'm sure all of us have used the function in either programming language or maybe in a database language or TSQL language. So functions is a small piece of code where you write down a code in a function because we reuse it. So same way this function in a cloud, Azure cloud, we call it the Azure Functions. It's a very similar one. So let's see a definition. So Azure Function is a solution for easily running a small piece of code in a cloud or a function in a cloud. It's a very simple. Independently, you can write down your code in Azure, and then it can be used by any solution. It can be used by IoT solution. It can be used by data integration solution, or it can be used by app integration solution. So function has a few characteristics, because when we write down a code in on-premise system, we need to call that function somewhere in a code. But here it's triggered based on an event. So event driven means your function is run, start executing based on some condition or based on a trigger. So once that condition arrives, your function will execute. So here you have like HTTP trigger, timer trigger, blob trigger, queue trigger, even in a SQL trigger as well. So when something is changed, based on that, your function will execute automatically. Next one is function is a serverless and is a platform as a service. So here also you don't need to worry about compute infrastructure or software installation or web server configuration and many more. Azure will do it for you. So you can fully focus on implementation and you can build it very quickly. It's a scalable. So when demands comes, it scale up resources, and when demand down, it scale down the resources. So it's a save your cost. So for example, Christmas time, online shopping demand will high. So that's why in that situation, Azure will add more resources so it can achieve quickly outputs. And when there is a, like after Christmas, maybe January or February, there is no demand or less demand, at that time you scale down the resource. So it save your cost, so it's a cost effective as well, and it to easily scale up and scale down. And last but not least, it's lightweight, because function is lightweight and it do a specific task. For example, it do addition or it do multiplication or like that. So it do some calculation and it give you a result. So this is the four main characteristic of a Azure function. Sorry. You can find more information regarding Azure function if you like to know more information using this link. And you can see it look like this symbol. So this symbol is three things: code plus data plus event. So this is Azure functions. So now we're going to see how you can integrate your Azure function with Azure Data Factory very easily. So for that, you have Azure Data Factory in your subscription. You have Azure Function as well. And inside your Azure Function apps, you have Azure Functions. And you have a, because you have Azure Function apps, you have a URL as well, function URL. So now you need to call using the Azure Data Factory. So for that, Azure Data Factory have activities, as we know, and it has activities for running the Azure function. So it has a function activity. So in this function activity, we need to set few things, like we need to tell which function apps, which methods, messages, and many things. So these are the main things you need to pass in your function app, function activity when you're calling the function. So you're passing URL, function key, name, methods, and message. And I guess it's a post method. And then function will execute independently and it's returned back to Azure Data Factory. So it's very easily you can integrate it by few button clicks away. And you need this integration in your data solution. For example, something is not feasible using the Azure Data Factory or Azure Synapse data integration pipeline. So at that time, you can use Azure function. So in, for example, I have used Azure function in my data solution because I have some requirements which is not at the moment feasible using the Azure Data Factory. I will show you later on this session. So this is the Azure Data Factory and Azure Functions integration. So now we're going to move into next topic, which is Azure Logic Apps. So if you have any question now, then I can take it. Otherwise, I move into next topic, which is Azure Logic Apps. So I assuming no question. So now let's start with Azure Logic Apps. So what is Azure Logic Apps? So basically, Azure Logic Apps is interface between your new system in a cloud and your old system. So let's see a definition. So it is a cloud-based integration service for creating and running automated workflows that integrates your application, data, services, and systems. So it easily integrate with on-premise system or cloud system or both of them. It's like hybrid as well. And if you like to know example where you can use Azure Logic Apps, then for example, when file is created or deleted from your SFTP folder, like as soon as the file arrive into your SFTP folder, you would like to do some calculation or would like to process your file, then you can use Azure Logic Apps. Um, Another example is, for example, you have a product and you would like to know sentiment behind uh, that products, like how your customer feels about your products based on tweeters. So like for example, as soon as the tweet regarding your product is posted in a Twitter, you can call a Logic Apps, and Logic Apps can apply a sentiment analysis on that feedbacks, and based on that you will get idea that you need to improve your service products, or which service you can improve and how you can improve. So it will like you will get some sorry, you will get very good idea about your about sentiments of your customer for your products, and you can improve as well. So for logic apps, you can see that logic app has around 200 connectors available, which you can use for connecting easily connecting in your logic apps, because logic apps also no code or low code solution. So for example, sending email, you can have like Gmail, Outlook, Office 365, SMTP, and SendGrid, and many more. So these all connectors are ready-made available in a Logic app. So you just need to drag and drop them, and then you can send email easily. So you can see this is a symbol of Logic apps, and you can find more information if you'd like to know more about Logic apps than using this link. And now we're going to see integration. So like how you can integrate your Logic apps with Azure Data Factory. So for that you have Azure Data Factory services and you have Azure Logic apps. So you have two services available. So now you have a Logic apps, and your Logic apps has a triggers, and it has a URLs. And in another side you have Azure Data Factory, and Azure Data Factory have a pipeline, and inside it has a web activity. So in this web activity, you need to set few properties, like you need to set URL of your logic apps, methods, and message in the case of the post method. So you set this information here, and based on that it will execute your logic apps, and logic apps will do that task. For example, sending email logic apps, then it will send email and it come back to here in Azure Data Factory. So you can very easily integrate that in few buttons away as well. And in your data solution, there are few things is not possible using the Azure Data Factory directly. For example, sending a customized email at the moment is not possible. However, you have a alert which send a email, but it's not a user friendly. But so if you need a customized email or you'd like to attach some files, sorry, or a reports while sending the email, then you can use Azure Logic Apps. So this way you can integrate Logic Apps and Azure Data Factory. Now let's move into fourth one, which is a demo. So in this demo, we are using all three services. And before we going into demo, let's see problem statements for that. So we have a on-premise system, and in on-premise system have a following features. For example, it on-premise existing systems do a data movements and data transformation. It apply a image resizing. It generate a manifest file having the e-tag, record count, file name, and many more things. And it send a customized email. So these are the four main features we have in our existing system. So if you like to migrate this project or system in Azure Cloud, then is it possible only Azure Data Factory? We will see. So this is now second second part is migrating the old system into Azure Cloud. So for that, first one is data movements and data transformation. So for that, we can use easily Azure Data Factory or Azure Synapse Analytic Data Pipeline. Second requirements is image resizing. So you can do image resizing using Azure Function. Here at the moment, this is not feasible using Azure Data Factory itself. So we using the Azure Functions. Third requirement is creating a manifest file. Again, this is not possible directly using Azure Data Factory. So that's why we're using Azure Functions for that. And fourth one is sending a customized email. So these requirements again is not directly feasible using the Azure Data Factory, because we may need attachment or we need some formats. So for that we can use Azure Data Factory. So you can see that this is your old system or existence on premise system, and if you migrate into cloud, then you need these services. So you need Azure Data Factory, you need Azure Function, and you need Azure Logic Apps. So these are the things we going to see in a demo. So for image resizing and manifest file, we have two different pipelines. So let's start with first the pipeline which generate a manifest file. So here you can see that I have Azure Blob storage. It has a file disk in container and it contains the CSV files. It can contain the JSON file or mix of both of them. But for this demo, I have only considered CSV file. So we have one service ready and we have another service which is Azure SQL database. So this database hold the final results of data. So when you have three files in your Azure Blob storage, when I run my pipeline, you will see that I will have three tables in here created automatically. If I have 100 files, then it will create 100 tables automatically using the pipelines. So that is Azure SQL service which hold the final results or as a sync. Then we have Azure Key Vaults to provide the security and store the reads connection string in a central place. Sorry. So here you can see that Key Vaults is very useful. For example, if you have a Azure SQL database and you need to change a password, but your Azure SQL database has used in a more than one system. So if you want to change a password, then you have to change all three systems. But if you use the Key Vaults, then you only need to do a change in one place, which is in Key Vault. Without changing any systems, you only need to change in a Key Vaults and it will automatically reflect all other place. So that is another benefit to using Azure Key Vault service. Then I have used Azure Function to send or to generate a manifest file once it transferred from source to sync from blob storage to Azure SQL database. When it successfully move all files, after that I'm creating a manifest file using the Azure Function service. And I have Azure Logic service. So once my manifest file is created and my pipeline has run successfully, I would like to send an email, either success email or failure email. So that's why I have used a Logic apps. And then I have a Azure Data Factory. So these are the 6 services we have used for this demo. And in Azure Data Factory, I have a pipelines. So now my pipelines is reading the data from this source CSV files in a file disk in container. So pipeline has a for each loop. So it's read file, like how many records you have. So like if I have 3 files here, then my for each loop run for 3 times and it copy data from a CSV file into a particular table. So if I have 3 files, for each loop run 3 times and it create 3 tables in Azure SQL database and it loaded data as well. So after doing that, you can see that it will load in a second steps. And after loading the data, Azure function will execute because pipeline has a function activity and it's call that Azure function, and end of the execution it come back here. But when it's execute, it will generate a manifest file and it will store that file into a blob storage. It can use the same blob storage or it can use other blob storage, or you can have another mechanism as well. And it save that file based on a extensions. It store that new file with a .chk extension, and it has a summary of the transformation. So if I have 3 files, then this new file has 3 records like file name, file type, file name, dates, and e-tags, and few more things. So it has a summary. It's like metadata of your transformation. And once it's done, um, Azure function have another pipelines or activity which execute and it called Azure Logic Apps, and Azure Logic Apps send an email and it's come back to here. So this is a high level design of creating a manifest file for demo one. So now let's go back to demo. So here you can see that sorry. So here you can see that demo, but I will like to show you one by one each resources. So this is my key vaults, and key vaults hold the secrets because I have Azure Blob storage, I have Azure SQL database, and I have Azure Function. So I have three secrets here. And if you like to use the secrets in your Azure Data Factory, then there are main step is access policy. So you have to have give a access policy here, and here you just selecting your Azure Data Factory and you giving them permission for secrets or key or certificates. That's it. So once you apply that, you can then and then you can successfully use the secrets in your Azure Data Factory. And you can very easily create that by clicking here and selecting your data factory and selecting permissions. That's it. And even creating secrets also you can do very quickly by clicking here and you giving a name and you providing the key. So here you can have like your database password or connection string or your blob storage access key or connection strings or function key or like that. So we are not going to create that. So this is Azure Key Vaults. Let's close it out because we don't need that now. So next service is Azure Blob Storage. So you can see that this is a blob storage and we have this three container file, this in container, input container and output container. But for this demo, we are only considering file days in container. So this is my container and you can see that I have a files in here. Let me delete this file. So I'm deleting this file because that is output of execution. So you can see that in my container at the moment I have three files. So it should create a three tables in when I run pipeline. If I have 100 files, then it create 100 tables. And it can use a different business outcome. So at the moment I'm using Pacific container, which is file this in container. But I can work the same pipeline can work for another business outcome. For example, business outcome 2 or business outcome 3. So it will work based on same things. You just need to pass different container and it's look different container instead of file this in container. So for that I have parameterized my pipeline as well. So that is my source and this is my sink or destination. So at the moment you can see that I have only three tables, and when I run my pipeline you will see here three more tables because I have three files in my blob storage here. So it will create three more tables here. And this is a fourth service, which is Azure Function app. And you can see that this is a quick overview of Azure Function apps. You can see this is Function apps URL. And here you can see many more things. You can see your functions. You can see this function key is very important because this key you needed when you using your function. So you can use your function in maybe Azure Data Factory or Azure Synapse Analytics or other place. Then you need to give this function key and a function name and this URL, function URL. So this is the quick overview. So now we're going to see a functions. So in my function apps, I have four functions, and this is Azure portal, and you can create your functions here. You can test your functions here. You can monitor function here. So this is function already here, but you can create by clicking here, and you can do it very quickly as well by selecting. However, this is not a recommend way. So you can create your functions here, but you better to use using the code, maybe C# or Visual Studio or Visual Code. So I have already function. So now let's test our function. So here you can see that you can go to code plus test, and it a little bit low today, but yeah, so it will function which appears here like this, and you can test your function by just clicking on that button. You select methods and you pass required methods. So for here, for example, let's pass because it's needed a name, and for example, let's pass Azure user group we done. So I'm passing required message and I'm running that. So you can run your function here and you can see that it responds 200, and here you can see that hello Azure resource Azure user group Sweden, and you can see logs here as well. So this way you can execute or test your function in portal. However, this is not a recommend way. You can do it by triggers, event driven triggers. So this is the functions. You can see here integration as well, like how they are coming, like which trigger it has used and inputs and outputs. And here you can monitor your functions using Azure portal. So you can see here history as well. Sometimes it take a little bit time, so you can see that and you can trace it. If it's failed, then you know why it's failed, so you can go to here and you can see that it's invalid information, that's why. So, and you can see success as well. And app integration, this is very powerful things. And if you go to app integration, and you can see more information here, because in a main monitor area you can see not all functions after a certain limit. So here you can see everything for success, fail, and many things. And you can even see exception as well, and even you can have a trace as well. If you like to trace one by one, then you can use that trace as well based on log you have provided in your code. So this is app insights. But you don't need to do anything. This is automatically created for you once you create your function. And this is a function key as well if you want to give only for this function. So you can see by clicking here, and then you can copy this function key and you give to whoever is using your function. So they will call your function like that way. So this is a quick overview of functions. Now we're going to see a logic apps. So this is Azure logic apps. This is a no code or low code solution. And here you can see the designer of your logic apps. And your logic apps must have a one and only one trigger. I have HTTP trigger, but you can have a timer triggers or reoccurrence triggers and many more. And I have initialize. So here I'm calculating few message body as well. Uh, Here you will get URL, and this is a URL you need to call in your Azure function. So this is a very important URL. So you need to copy this URL. That's it. So here I'm calculating a message body, and here I'm calculating that my pipeline is success or fail. If it's failed, then I have a failure email, and if it's success, then I have a success email. And I have used here Gmail connector, so you can see that that's it. So I have used Gmail containers connector, so I don't need to write down any code for that. And I just passing the to whom I need to message, I'm using myself, and message body which we have calculated here, and title, message title, and you can have a CC and attachment as well. So those things you can set it here. So this is a logic apps, and here you can see the code view of your logic apps as well. And this code help you to do your continuous integration and continuous delivery for exam templates. If you like to do that, you need to slightly change it, but this code will help to you. And this is a connectors, API connectors. As I said, they have more than 200 connectors available. So I have used a Gmail connectors here for sending the email. So this is a logic apps. And let's go to here. I want to show you one more things. So, and here you can see the run history. So if someone Azure Data Factory has used logic apps, and if logic apps fail or success, you can check here. If it's failed, then I failed, then why is failed, then you will get idea as well here. and when it's ran as well, you can check time as well. Okay, so now we have see of 5 services. Now sixth one is Azure Data Factory. So this is my Azure Data Factory, and I have a link service. So I have a link service for Azure Key Vault. So you can see that I'm just specifying URL of your key vaults, and that's it. So once I have that one, then I can use that key vaults in here in my Azure SQL database connection. So I have used Azure Key Vaults to with the secrets. So you can see that here I'm not specifying which Azure SQL database I have used, which table I have used, or which user I have used, or which password I have used. Nothing you can see. You only see secret name because secret has a connection string. So this is my Azure SQL database link service. This is a function link service. So you can see this is function URL, and here also function key comes from key vaults. That's it. And then I have Azure Blob storage, and this is also connected with key vaults. And you don't know here which blob storage we are using because all information stored in the secrets. So it's secret. It give you security as well. So this is a link service, and here you can see code as well. But you don't need to worry about this code because this code is automatically generated for you. And here you can see that who is using your link service, and you can delete as well here. So this is a link service. Now we're going to move into pipelines. So this is my Azure Data Factory pipelines. This is my branch, and my branch hold the pipeline for that. So I have 2 pipelines because I have 2 demo. So we're going to see first demo here, which is um, manifest file creation. So while I'm doing that, I would like to run that. So parallelly, I can explain you as well. But you can see that I have 3 files here, and I don't have any. I have only 3 tables here. But after execution, you will see that it will generate 3 more tables here. So now let's go to pipeline. So I'm running this pipeline while explaining you more things. So I'm using here specific business outcome, which is a file related. But sorry, but you can have a different business outcome. Then you can pass here business outcome 1 or 2 or 3. So based on that, it will pick that specific container from your blob storage. So I'm running this pipeline, and while I'm explaining as well, so you can see that I have used here metadata activity. So metadata activity read a old file from that specific container. So if that container has here 3 files, then metadata file give me 3 rows for each file, and it's give 3 rows, and it's passed that 3 to for each loop, and then for each loop execute 3 times, and whatever you have here it will execute 3 times. So I have copy activity which execute 3 times, and append variable have some calculation for that. So it's 3 time copy from blob storage to Azure SQL database, and here it will hold the entry each time. So if 3 files, you have 3 entries here as well. So once I run my for each loop, so at end of this I have now data in my Azure SQL database. So if I refresh now, you will see there are 3 more tables will created, and it's related to event, uh, G-info, and movie DB. So stay table name also same based on this one. It's just removing this CSV extension, and it create 3 tables. So if you go here, you can see that there are 3 tables: DBO events, DBO G-info, and DBO movie DB. So this 3 table created, and you can view information as well here because it's more data as well. So let's go back here. So this one is done. So after transferring data and applying some modification or whatever you would like to do, it called the Azure Functions. So you can see that this is my Azure Functions, and I'm passing few informations. I'm passing the link service, holding the URL of your functions and name of the function key of the function. I'm passing here function name, which is my create manifest function. So you can see in my function app have this function create manifest function. So I'm passing this function, and it is a post method. So I need to pass a message body. So here I'm passing the required information in JSON format. So here I have a variable, I have open variable holding the required information. So I will show you what it has later on. So that's it. We're passing this information, and based on that, Azure function will execute and it do some specific task. So in our case, it's generate a new file, and it come back to Azure function, Azure Data Factory. Sorry. So once it's come into Azure Data Factory, here you can see that I have two web activities. In case of the failure of this or success of this, so create using the logic apps, you can see that I have web activity and I need to do few settings. So this is a URL, as I said you that your logic apps has a URL which is a trigger URL. So you can, this URL you need to copy and you need to paste that URL here, and you need to select method, and in case of the post you need to pass the required information. So I'm passing here my pipeline name, data factory name, because I have three different environments, so I need a data factory name as well. Run ID, like which pipeline is using, because most of all pipelines is using the email functionality. So if in case of the failure, you will see here error message, and you see time as well based on a trigger. And this I just send a green color for successful, but you can apply some other logics as well. So this information I'm passing, that's it. And based on that, logic apps will execute. So you can see that it already executed my logic apps because here is a green. So if I'm going to see here, and if I going to see a history of the logic apps, hopefully this is the time. So logic apps has executed today, and you can see here as well. In case it's success or fail, you will see here information, and you can see that to whom it has sent. So this is a message information which I have passed from my Azure Data Factory, and this is a person who getting the email. And if I'm going to check here, you can see that I got email today, and you can see it's 3 minutes before ago. You can more customize, but I have a very less information here. In case of the success or failure, you will get email for both scenario. So now let's see here, my pipeline has executed. This function should create a new file in a blob storage here. So if I refresh here, you will see one new file. So this is a new file which is a manifest file which having the .chk extension, you can see here, and it appending the timestamp as well, date and times. Okay, so now let's open this file and edit this file. So you see that it has 3 records. It has because I have 3 files in my blob storage. So file 1 and counts how many records it has, and this is e-text, which is very important, and this is the things it's not possible using Azure Data Factory itself, because this is a blob property, and this is a timestamp again here. For each file you can see that. So if I scroll it down, so I just would like to show you for event tag for this, e-tag for this. So this is a file which is event CSV file, and you can see this is a e-tag, and you can see this is the value of this. So if I copy this value, and if I go back to my manifest file, if I edit this file, if I search here, then you will see there is one record for that. So you can see that this is a file, and this e-tag is for this event.csv file. Same way you can match with this as well. Why we need this? Because we have a third party system and they are using this file and they need it in that specific way. So that's why we need to create a manifest file, because it's in on-premise system and we migrating it. We don't want to change it functionality wise. So that's why we have to use Azure Function for this. So this file has created end of this demo, and this is a manifest file. So now I just would like to show you here few things. So this is the parameters. I have a spec parameters. You can have more parameters here. this parameter I have used because I would like to copy when my pipeline will run. I would like to use only a specific container for specific business outcome. So at the moment I'm focusing on file, but if I type here business outcome 2 and if I run this pipeline, and if I have a folder here, for example, yeah, so if I pass feedback, then it will create a new. If I run same pipeline, let's I will run later on, but I will show you here few things after that. Then same pipeline will work and it look for the specific container. So here lookup activity, we can quickly look one by one. So this is Outlook, and you can see that this is my metadata activity, and it has children's child items, and it has a 3 child item because I have 3 items in blob storage, but if that specific container. But if I have 100, then you will see here 100 entries. So let's close this. So this is my for each loop running for 3 times because it has 3 entries in my metadata activity. My for each loop run for 3 times, so you can see that. And here you can see that it's moved data from blob storage to sorry it's moved data from blob storage to a Azure SQL database. And here you can see that which file. So you can see that it's a event.csv file, so it create one table which is event dbo.events table. And same way you can see that here is for ginfo.csv, and it create new table for that, and for same way for here as well. An append variable is hold the information like file name and concatenation with the counts, how many counts it has. And this manifest file creation, you can see that it has this information. It has a function name, methods, and which container they are interested. And here is a message body, it's a value. So this is a value I'm passing to calling my manifest function. File name concatenation with counts. And here you can see that it's success or fail. It's okay, so it's success. And you can see that logic apps. So this is a message body of logic apps. So here you can see that it has a URL of your logic apps. It has a methods, and there is no header at the moment, but you can have header as well. And this is a message body. So let's close it out. So this is the logic apps one, and you even quickly see here that this is my blob storage, and here I'm passing this, looking for this specific container. And this is for each loop. You can see that here for each loop is using uh, for each loop is using the actually I think it's used instead of for each loop. So this is a for each loop, and you will see that here that I'm passing the uh, this append array which I have here. This is append array. At the moment is empty, but it will calculate based on inside the for each loop. But I'm passing this metadata activity. So because I have settings here, and you can see that this is the child item from my metadata, because we see there are 3 child items. So I'm just passing it here, and this is the here metadata activity. And you can see that for each loop has copy activity and append activity. And here you can see that it's my source is a blob storage. Here I have some calculation that remove the .csv from a file and create same name as a table. And here you can see that it's removing it and it creating as a table, same name as a file name as a table name. And you can see mapping as well if you want to explicitly explain here, and that's it. And then append variable will have a few things, like append variable have some settings for that file name and concatenation with count. So that's it here. And now let's see in here. And this is for it. I think I already show you how it looks. I have already seen. We have already seen it how it looks. This one. And this is a logic apps also. We have seen logic apps that it has URLs and few things. You can see it here as well. And that's it. So this is my metadata, the pipeline which generate manifest file. This pipeline can work for one business outcome or more than one, and this pipeline can uh, uh, look for specific containers, and it run for one file or 100 files or more than that. So if you want to run that same pipeline with another container, which is feedback container, then it will look for that. So let it run. But while it's running, we're going back to see a different demo, and we come back here later. So we're going to come into presentation. So we have seen this demo which generate a manifest file, and it move a data from blob storage to Azure SQL table. So now let's see a second demo for resizing your image. So here I have used Azure Function, but I have used a blob trigger of Azure Function because I would like to show you a different flavor of the Azure Function. So without calling the function sorry, directly into Azure Data Factory, Azure Function will automatically run as soon as the file arrives into that particular container. So let's see what I have. So I have Azure Blob Storage, and here also I'm using file des in container. And in my file des in container, I have a one CSV file which hold the metadata about of JPG file, and I have a list of JPG files. So for example, if I have three JPG file, then I have a three entry in my CSV file, like file name and file few more information. So that is a blob storage service. Then I have Azure database service, Azure Data Factory service. Then I have Azure Key Vaults for the same purpose, which I explained earlier. Then I also have Azure Blob Storage, and it has output container which hold only the JPG files. I have Azure Blob Storage with input container which hold the JPG files again, but different purpose. Here I will show you when it's used this and when it's used this. And then I have Azure SQL database, which hold the data, which hold this CSV file or metadata file in a table as a table. And I have Azure functions which resize my image. As soon as the image arrive into this container, input container, this function will automatically triggers and resize the image in a medium and small size and place into different container, which is output container. And I have here logic apps as well. So this first one is Azure Data Factory have a pipeline, and pipeline has activity, for each loop activity, lookup activity, or like that. So it's read this file, CSV file, and it's move each file from file this in container to a input container. So for each loop will run for 3 times if I have 3 files, but I will show you, I think I have 2 files in execution, so it will run for 2 times, and it move that JPG file into a blob storage input container. And then finally it will move the CSV file into Azure SQL database as a table. And as soon as the image arrive into input container, Azure function will automatically triggers because it has a blob trigger, and it resize the image, and it store image into this output container. So if I have a 2 image here, it will generate a 4 image. Because small size and medium size. So each image has a two size, small size and medium size. So if you have two file, here I have a 4 images, and then logic apps will generate emails after that. So this is higher higher level design of demo 2, which is resizing image. And now we're going to see same in here. So before demo we have execute this one. uh, Anyway, because of some different reason is fail, but that's fine. But it worked for another business outcome as well, because we have used instead of file does in, we have looked for fit best days in. And here you can see that I will get fail email as well. Okay, so now we closing this demo 1, and we're going to see a demo 2, which is this is a demo 2 which resizing the image. So here you can see that I am not calling Azure function activity directly, because indirectly it calls when file arrives into that input container. Okay, so let me go to my input container, which is here, that file is in container. So I'm using same container for both demo. So I'm just deleting these files, because I need to add files for related to image. So now I'm uploading files here. um, and I'm uploading for this demo, which is this file. So I have two CSV file, sorry, one CSV file, and I have two image JPG image. And here you can see that you have a CSV file which is cars, and you will have a two entries, because you have a two image outside. So like customer ID and car type and car name. This is a very simple data, but in real time you have millions of million data. And this is my file this in container. And now let's see input container. So this is an input container, and you can see that it's empty. But when I run my demo, you will see here two entries. And after end of the demo, output container is empty as well here, but it have a 4 entries. Okay, because two image I have, so it will be 4 entries. And let's just open this, and here you can see that Azure SQL database. So I don't have a table for a cars dot car name, dbo dot cars, but you will see here one table as well. So now let's run this second demo. uh, so I'm passing the file. So I have a concatenation with this in here. Let me show you, because so in data set, I'm concatenating with original container with des in container. So here you can see that I'm concatenating it. So it's looking for file des in container, because I have given some naming standard. So like original container is file, staging container is file des staging container, and input container is file des input container. Same way for business outcome 1, 2, or 3, they will same structure. So that's why I have used this standard. So now let's run my pipeline. So it's looking for that file design container which having the CSV file having the two records and two JPG files. And this is a CSV file. So I'm running this demo. While it's running, we can check here. So this is my lookup activity. And lookup activity will look that particular spec code, which is a file design container, and that particular file which is a CSV file. So if CSV file have a 10 records, then it's pass 10 records to for each loop. If it has 100 records, then it pass 100. And if it has a 2, then it's pass 2. So in our scenario, it has a 2 records. So it will pass 2 to for each loop. So here you can see that for each loop is running. And here you can you can see that it's items of this lookup activity. So you can see that. And here also you don't need to remember anything, so you just need to here which activity you can specify. So I am using the lookup activity, so you just need lookup activity, that's it. So let me paste it here. So for each loop run now 2 times, and it what it will do, it just a copy a data. So it's copy a binary copy because I have a JPG file, so that I need to move from that file is in container to a input container. So here you can see that it has a binary copy. I'm using binary data set and it doing binary copy one by one. It's read that CSV file and copying one by one JPG from blob storage file this in container to input container. And this is a sync settings as well of that. That's it. And once for each loop finish, it will copy final file which is a CSV file. So here you can see that my source is a blob container and it's using that CSV file. You can check it here as well, which we passing it because initially I have passed a file this in a CSV file, car.csv file as a parameter. And this is my sync, which is Azure SQL database. You can see it here. So it's creating the table based on a file name by just removing CSV from that file parameter, and then it's concatenating trimming as well. And at end of the pipeline execution, you can see that it's sending the email here. And you can see that this is URL of logic apps methods, and the same thing which I showed you earlier, all other informations like what you're going to pass. So my pipeline has successfully executed. What you will expect in input container, here you expect two JPG file because you have two files in your source input container. So if I refresh here, you will see I have two files, which is image, uh, two cars image, so two files. But if I go to my output container, I will have four files here because as soon as the file arrive into input container, my function execute, and function will create two files for each file. So here's original file name and space and AMD, original file name space SM means small size and this is a medium size. Same for these two files as well, medium and small. And you can open here as well like how it will look. So this is a image file. So yeah, so this is a demo 2. We can, okay, yeah, we need to see one new table in here. So here if I refresh, you will see one new table which is car.csv. This is a new table and you can see that it has a two entries as well. It's a bit slow, but you will see that it has a two entries like a customer ID, type, and file name. And you can see that I have a few messages as well because one pipeline fail, pipeline success. So these are the one. This is a recent one for a demo pipeline, which is a new pipeline we are running. And here you can see that same thing, that this is returning two records, lookup activity returning two counts, and for each loop will execute 2 times. Copy activity move JPG file um, to binary copy from JPG to blob, so you can see here blob to blob. And same way here as well, and this is a CSV file from blob to Azure SQL database. And here you can see that send email because we are not calling Azure function here directly, but it will automatically trigger. So here you can see that logic apps as well. So now let's go back to presentation. So this is the end of the demo 2. in order, if you would like to create this demo same in your site, then you need to create 6 resources, which is Azure Data Factory and storage, SQL Server, Azure SQL Server, Azure Key Vault, Azure Functions, and Azure Logic Apps. Now I would like to conclude this session. So we have seen Azure Data Factory, which is a cloud-based data integration service, which is Azure Platform as a Service and serverless, so you don't need to worry about many other things. It's a no-code or low-code solution. It helps you to do your data movements, data transformation. It helps you to orchestrate your pipeline and automate your pipeline. You can easily integrate Azure Data Factory with other Azure services, for example, Azure Databricks, Azure Machine Learning, Azure Function, Azure Logic Apps, and many more. So this is Azure Data Factory. Then we have seen Azure Functions, which is a small piece of code in Azure, which is a very good service, and it's a part of the integration solution you can use for your IoT integration solution, data integration solution, or a application integration solution. And it is event driven, so based on that particular event your function will trigger, and it uses a serverless compute as well. So that is Azure Function. Then we have seen Azure Logic Apps, which is help you to automate workflow, create your automate workflow, and it help you to connect with apps, data systems, and many other things. It is like an interface between your old system and new system. It is a no-code local solution. It is also integration, part of the integration service, and it's a serverless as well. So then we have seen 2 demo. We have seen first demo to create a manifest file, where we're moving the data from Blob storage to Azure SQL database, and then we create a manifest file, and that file is with a .chk extension, which we save into Blob storage, and then we sending an email. And in second demo, we have an image in an input container, in storage container. So we resizing them based on a metadata file or CSV file, and then we resizing them based using the Azure function, which is automatically based on blob trigger, and then we sending emails as well, and we have that CSV file in Azure SQL as a table. So with that, I would like to thank you for attending this session, and I am now open with a question. And if time have, then I can show you the C# code for Azure function as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Alpha, for the great session that you delivered today. And I'm very impressed, and I really appreciate that even though you're having tiny colds, you're here to
Yeah.
deliver and sharing knowledge. So I am sure our audience understand that and appreciate it as much as I do, and for sure Hokan as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
So it seems that we, yeah, here we actually have a question here. So first
We
we
have
have
a
a
question.
comment. I have a comment here from Ashish, who says, excellent demo and session today, thanks a ton. And he also has a comment there. I have read somewhere that Azure Data Factory is expensive service. What are your thoughts on this?
Actually, I think it's a very good service, and I find it's a cost-effective service. But everything in a cloud, in any cloud, it depends on how we are using. So if we're not using carefully, then it costly. Otherwise, it is a cheaper. Yeah. So I find it's a cheaper and cost-effective service.
Okay.
Right.
Otherwise, I think we don't have any more questions, right?
Okay, then I can quickly show C# code if anyone would like to
Uh, I think
implement.
I think we're out of time right now,
Okay,
but you
that's
can
fine. I can share
share
later
the
on. Yeah,
link. Yeah, and then we
yeah,
also have a 15-20 minutes
yeah,
Zoom meeting after the session
yeah,
for those speakers who wants to join and ask more questions with you or
yeah.
with us today. And we really appreciate the great session. And um, I have I have a question, but I think I'll reserve it for our Zoom
Yeah,
meeting, so we respect others' time as well. But
yeah, yeah.
um, to our listeners today, audience, our community, please let me just show you the Azure Heroes badger, learner badger. So Microsoft Azure Heroes is uh, a digital badger that we Microsoft provides to those that are learning and increasing their technical knowledge about Azure. So feel free to scan the QR code to get your learner badge and use the tag Azure Heroes if you want to share it on your social media. And I did share the Bitly link for our Zoom meeting, so feel free to join us as well on this link. Do you have any final words, Håkan?
No, yes, thank you so much. It was a very
Yes.
extensive demo with many moving parts. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that you took the time here, and especially since you you have a bit of a cold there, Alpa. So
Yeah,
that's appreciated.
yeah, yeah. Thank you,
Yes.
and thank you all for attending this session. And very apology for these irritating things, but yeah,
No, we do everything to share
yeah.
knowledge, and we really appreciate that. So, your time with us. All
Thank
right,
you.
so it's time to say goodbye again, Håkan.
Yeah,
Right? It
yeah,
Yes.
goes so quick, the 1 hour. But looking forward to meet everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to meet you in our after session fika. Otherwise, we wish everyone a happy weekend, especially in Sweden. I know we have the first Advent as well to those that are celebrating it. So enjoy your weekend with your family and friends, and a great weekend from me and Håkan and Azure User Group Sweden, and also from Alpha.
Mm.
See you later.
yeah,
Bye
yeah.
bye.
Bye bye.